Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar Stand Out with the GRE General Test in your business school application. My name is Donka and I'm the moderator of this webinar on behalf of PrepAdvisor. Our speaker today is Maria Kirilova. She is a client relationship specialist at ETS. During the webinar today, you will understand the structure of the GRE, including we'll talk about the home-based solution. And Maria will share with you some useful preparation tools, give you tips on how to register and how to send your score, and much more. You can use the chat box and the Q&A box during the entire webinar to ask your questions. I think we're ready now. Maria, I'll give you the floor now.
Thank you very much, Donka, for the kind introduction, and welcome everybody. Good morning, good day, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for taking the time of your day to come and join us today. Once again, my name is Maria Kirilova, and I will be your presenter today. We will talk about the GRE General Test. And let me go ahead and show you the content of the presentation. So we're going to start with just a short overview of the test. We're going to then move on and talk about taking the GRE General Test at home. I know that might be something that a lot of you have on your minds, considering the current situation at the moment and the closure of the test centers. So as Donka mentioned already, please feel free to ask any questions, or there might be some content I'm not able to cover, but please feel free to leave your questions in the Q&A box and we'll do our best to get to them. I'll give you some registration tips. I'll give you an overview of what to expect on the test day. We'll talk about getting and sending your scores, and we'll talk about tools to help you prepare and help you stand out. And at the end, I'll share with you a few sample questions taken from the test. So let's get started. I'll go over the overview. So the GRE General Test is used around the world for admission onto master programs, specialized master programs such as Masters in Finance or Masters in Marketing, for MBA programs, for JD programs, doctoral programs, and awarding fellowships as well. And the good news is that the scores are valid for 5 years. So if you take the test now, even if your plans change in the next 5 years, you can still use your scores. And then moving on, at the moment, there are more than 1,300 business schools that accept the GRE General Test. They are accepted worldwide, and most schools are following Harvard Business School lead in weighting the GRE scores equally to other business school admission tests. You can see here an insert from the website of Harvard Business School. They say there is no minimum GMAT or GRE score to apply, and we do not have a bias towards one test or the other. A lot of the schools that we work with, a lot of the business schools have the same policy. There is no preference. So if you feel that the GRE is more suitable for your skills, you shouldn't worry that it will be looked differently from business schools. The GRE is delivered mainly on a computer. We do support paper delivered format in some locations where the internet is not as stable, but it's generally a computer delivered test. And you should expect 3 sections on the test. You will have analytical writing, verbal reasoning, and quantitative reasoning. For the analytical writing, you have 1 section and 2 tasks in total with 30 minutes per task. For the verbal and the quantitative section, you have 2 sections within each of those sections. Both of them have 20 questions per section, and the verbal reasoning has 30 minutes per section, while the quantitative reasoning has 35 minutes per section. Also, on the exam, you should be informed that there is either an unscored section or a research section that does not count towards your scores. And if you get the unscored section, you will not know which one it is. So try your best just to answer the questions as you would during the general test. And if you get the research section, it would always be at the end and it will be clearly marked. So with the format we saw on the previous slide and with this additional section, the total testing time comes to 3 hours and 45 minutes plus the breaks. We're going to look at the breaks in just a little bit, just so you can see what are the options to get a breath of fresh air. Now, I just wanted to take a bit of a deeper dive into each of the sections just to give you an idea. And as I said at the beginning, please feel free to ask any follow-up questions as well. The analytical writing section assesses your critical thinking and analytical writing skills. And there are two tasks. The first one is to analyze an issue and develop an argument with reasons and or examples to support your position. The second task is to analyze an argument which requires you to assess the logical soundness of a given argument according to the specific task direction. The essay responses are typed on a computer. As we mentioned earlier, a lot of the test takers sit the test on a computer. And then moving on to the verbal reasoning section, it assesses your ability to understand what you read and how you apply your reasoning skills. The questions type include reading comprehension, text completion, and sentence equivalence. The multiple choice questions may ask you to select one right answer, or you might be prompted to select one or more answers. And at the end of the presentation, I have taken a screenshot of some of the sample questions just for you to see what it looks like. And last but not least is the quantitative reasoning section. It's quite important. It assesses your ability to interpret and analyze quantitative information and solve problems using mathematical models. The question types include quantitative comparison, multiple choice, again, with one right answer or more than one right answer, and numeric entry. And the questions are really constructed around basic mathematical skills and concepts such as arithmetics, algebra, geometry, and data analysis. You can see on the right side of the screen, this is the on-screen calculator, which is always available to you during the quant section. So you can use it as the questions prompt you to do some numerical calculations. And then moving on, we're getting to the section which I'm guessing is quite timely at the moment, considering the situation we are all experiencing all over the world. The GRE General Test is now available at home. I just wanted to take some of the anxiety away. You should know that the test at home is exactly the same. It's identical in content, length, format, and on-screen experience to the test taken at the test center. So if you have been preparing for the GRE and plan to take it at the test center, you should not be worried. It's exactly the same test and exactly the same experience. Also, the good thing is that the test uses the same scoring criteria, processes, scoring scales, etc. And what this means is that when you send your scores to your chosen universities, they wouldn't have to adjust to a new scoring system or a new format. It's exactly the same test. So that creates a little bit of convenience and also familiarity on their side as well. The home test is offered at the same price, and you can prepare in exactly the same way that you normally would. Later in the presentation, I'll tell you a little bit more about the free preparation material that we offer to our test takers, and I truly hope you take advantage of it. But let's talk about that a little bit later. The test delivery method. So how does it work to take the test from home? So pretty much what you need is a laptop or a computer which is equipped with a camera and a microphone. They can be either built-in or external. That doesn't really matter. And the session will be monitored by a live proctor. So there will be somebody watching your session to make sure that everything is going smoothly. But also if you had a question, for example, if something went wrong with the technology, or I don't know, maybe your computer gets stuck or the internet connection is not as stable, you could speak to your proctor, so you could chat with them. They're able to also speak to you on the microphone, which I guess it's adding an additional level of comfort that there's somebody that could assist you during the test. Of course, the entire test session will be videotaped, which is actually not different than the test session at the test center. We videotape them for security reasons. The web page here on the screen is very useful. I advise you to take a note of it and have a look at it whenever you have questions, or if you're planning to take the test, you may go there for recent updates. At the moment, the at-home solution is available to you on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. 24/7. So if you're not a morning person, no problem. You can schedule your test later in the afternoon, or if a lot of your family members are at home, you may choose a later in the evening moment where it may be a little more quiet, and so on. So you have the complete flexibility to choose whatever suits you. And now I'm going to go into registration tips, which are actually both applicable to the test center edition and the at-home edition. The first thing is really register as early as you can if you're planning to take the test, because capacity is limited, both for the at-home solution and for the test center option. If you wanted to get your preferred testing location, date, and time, this obviously is paramount. If you want to register, you will need to create an account, an ETS account at ets.org/mygre. There is a short video as well to support you with creating your account if you face any challenges. It's important to take a note of your login details, etc., because you will use the same account to later view your official scores online once they're available. And you can also sign up for the GRE Search Service to help schools find you. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And then you should also take a look at the ID requirements and other policies, which are quite strict. And having a look at those in advance will just take some of the anxiety of the test day. And then moving on. Each country has specific ID requirements. So have a look at the GRE information bulletin. It's available online. I will give you the link to that. The name must be an exact match. I know this is quite obvious, but it is important because this is an official requirement. So please make sure the spelling is an exact match. The first and the last name are of particular importance. So your given name and your family and surname must be an exact match with the ID that you decide to choose for the registration. And then this is how the creating an account looks like. I believe it's quite standard. There's nothing special about it. But again, do take note of the strictness of the first name and the last name, just so you don't face any challenges on the test day. We don't want you to be stressed. We want you to be able to show your best. And then once you create your account, this is how here in the blue button, you can register and find the test center that's the most convenient, that's closest to you. If you decided to go for the at-home option and take the test from the safety of your home, it will also be available there. So once you register and start searching, you will see the at-home option under this button as well. And now, again, as I mentioned, we want to take off as much of the anxiety as we can. So here are a few very quick tips. Go to the test center early. The same applies with the at-home solution. Log in early just to make sure that your equipment is working and that you're not facing any challenges. Be sure to bring your official ID, so the same ID that you're registered with. It will be checked at the test center. In addition to that, if you took the test online at home, you would need to show your ID at the camera, just like this, to the live proctor. So make sure you have it next to you on your desk. And the policies can be explained in detail at ets.org/GRE. So if you have any questions, there is a detailed information, but also feel free to also ask me here. I would be happy to help with whatever I can. And then a few strategies on how to approach the test. Ideally, you know, I think the best advice I can give you is that you need to get used to the type of question. So in this case, really, practice makes perfect. The more time you spend in advance to understand the type of questions, the better you will be prepared. And the test itself, it's quite friendly to the test taker. So as you can see here, you can change your answers, so you can go back and forth in the section, within the section, and change your answers. You can mark questions, so if you're not sure how to answer, you can mark the question and go back to it later. Skip and return, as I mentioned. You can pretty much navigate freely, which is a different approach from other admission tests that are out there. And this is what the panel looks like over here. It's quite self-explanatory. You've got your calculator for the quant section. You can mark, you can review, you can go back, you can go next, and so on. So feel free to use these features as you see fit to make the best out of your test performance. And here we come to the breaks, which are quite important. So after your third section, there will be a 10-minute break. And there is a 1-minute break between each of the rest of the sections. So take your time to, you know, stretch a little bit, take a little bit of rest. During the 10-minute break, of course, you can have a snack, you can have a drink, walk around a little bit, and so on. If you take an unscheduled break, the clock will not stop. So if need be, just make it as quick as possible, just so you don't waste your time on the test and the questions. As I mentioned earlier, the best strategy, the best tip is just get familiar with the questions and what the format is like, what the directions are like. As I said, some questions will prompt you for one answer on the multiple choice questions. Some of them will ask you for more. So it's important to read the instructions very, very closely as well. Be aware of time. Make sure you understand what each question is asking by reading thoroughly and reading all the answers, because unfortunately there is no credit for partially correct answers. And also, do not waste time on questions you find extremely difficult, since no question carries a greater weight than any other. I think that's an important tip. And after the test, now we're going to talk about getting and sending your scores from the GRE General Test. The scores are reported in the following scale. So on the analytical writing, the scores are between a 0 and a 6. So you may see a score of 4.5 or a 5 or a 5.5. The verbal reasoning and the quantitative reasoning is between 130 and 170. So you may see a score of 154, 162, etc., etc. This is what to expect. The unofficial scores at the end of the test. So towards the end of your test session, at the test center, as well as for the at-home solution, so this is still applicable, you will have the option to cancel your scores. So once you see your unofficial scores and you think, you know, today wasn't my best day, I know I can do better because I have done the practice tests, which we'll talk about, you can cancel your scores. We don't recommend that because you completely erase the incident of you taking the test on that day. And in the future, you know, these scores may still come handy to you. They're valid for 5 years, as I mentioned earlier. And you can view your unofficial scores. Generally speaking, the unofficial scores you see at the end of your test on the test days are usually quite close to the official scores you will receive after. And if you choose to report your scores, you will see the scores from the verbal reasoning and the quantitative reasoning measures, because those are computer rated. They are scored by a computer, while the analytical writing part is actually scored by a human and a computer. So that's why you'll be able to see those two sections only in terms of scores. And then you can decide to use your four free score reports at the end of the test, or you can send your scores after the test at any time. You always have the option to decide later, so don't feel the pressure to do so. The advantage here is that the four free score reports obviously won't cost you anything, and if you come prepared and if you know which 4 schools you would like to send your scores to, that's a great way to go about it and save some money as well. And this is how it looks. This is what you should expect on your screen at the end of your test. Roughly, as you can see here, your official scores will be available within 10 to 15 days. So this is a good indicator of where you are in terms of your performance, and maybe if you're not satisfied with it, or if you don't match the required score by your chosen institution, you can always plan to possibly retake the test in the future. So I believe we covered this content in its majority. The only thing I would mention from this slide is the score select option. So you can choose with the score select option which tests you would like to send to the schools of your choice. You may decide to send the most recent option. You may decide to send all options from the past 5 years. So for example, you have taken the test 2 times. You may say, I want to send all of them, because on the first test I did really well on the quant, but on the second test I did really well on the other two sections, so that's absolutely fine as well. It's there for your advantage. Use it strategically. It's, you know, if it can bring some benefit to your application, it is definitely there for you and available for you. So this is the score select option. Then I mentioned already 10 to 15 days to view your official scores online. Usually they come a little faster, but just in some very busy periods, we just reserve the right to take that long, but you should see your scores way faster actually. And then you can always order additional score reports. So remember, you're not limited to the 4 free score reports that we give you as part of your test registration. You can always add additional score reports. You know, if your plans change or you suddenly decide to apply to a few other schools as well, that's absolutely possible. And all of this is done via your account. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, take a good note of your account, you know, bookmark it, save your login credentials, just so you can easily access it back if need be. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes it happens that you don't reach the score that you needed, unfortunately. But don't worry, you can try and take the test again. You can take the GRE General Test once every 21 days, up to 5 times within any continuous rolling 12-month period. So if you don't do well, take some time, do some more preparation, and come back to the test. That's always an option there for you. With the score select, then you can mix and match as you as it gives you the biggest advantage and the biggest opportunity to be admitted at your chosen institution. Now, I just wanted to mention here the GRE diagnostic service. Of course, you don't plan for the worst case scenario where you don't reach the scores you hope for, but in case you do, there is the GRE diagnostic service. It's free of charge, and it pretty much gives you a report telling you, you know, these are the type of questions you got wrong, and these are the type of questions you did right. So then maybe when you go into further preparing yourself, you can strategically focus on some questions over others. I believe it's a great tool for you, so make use of it if need be. And I'm coming now to the tools to help you prepare. I mentioned earlier, we'll go over some of them. You can find all of this information again at ets.org/gre/prepare. The tools that I'm talking about during this presentation are completely free of charge, but we do offer a lot more that comes at the charge as well. So don't limit yourself to what is presented here. The Power Prep test preview tool contains information to help you familiarize yourself with the question types, the features, and what is available during the GRE General Test. It's free of charge, and it can be found in your account, in your ETS account. Then we have the as well, as part of the Power Prep Online, you actually get 2 real examples of what the GRE General Test looks like. It's free of charge, and it completely simulates the test environment with the timing, with the sections, etc. One of the tests, I believe, even is literally timed, so you can see the real scenario of what your test would look like during the test days, and you can really test how you actually do under the pressure and under the time constraint as well. It's free of charge, so absolutely by all means take advantage of these two tests. They can really help you, even as we talked about diagnosing. Maybe you can self-diagnose, you know, I'm doing quite well on some section over the other, and this is where I need to work a little bit more to improve my skills. And connect with us. You know, we're out there, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. There's a lot of useful videos on YouTube, also with a lot of candidates, with a lot of test takers, so you can maybe learn from them some additional strategies that were not covered during today's webinars. They can give you tips of how to not get nervous, or how to you know, become even smarter in tackling the GRE, etc. So do connect with us as well on LinkedIn. The same thing, we do have a GRE page specifically actually for business schools as well, with some tips as well. So do search us and connect with us as well. Now, I wanted to speak to you about the search service. I mentioned it during the webinar a little bit earlier. The search service pretty much helps schools find you. So it lists a free profile about you to help institutions find you more easily. If you match the recruitment profile of a participating institution, you may be sent information about graduate and business school programs, admission requirements, financial aid opportunities, scholarships, etc. You will be asked if you would like to register for the search service when you register for the GRE test, or you can register for this free service in your ATS account. So pretty much you can decide now or later whether you want to make use of this search service. What it is, pretty much the essence of it is that you participate in a database, and according to your preference, for example, you take the GRE for the purpose of going to a business school. Business schools that you had not considered in the past might find you and reach you and just present themselves as an option to you. Of course, the choice is entirely yours at the end. And I'm actually coming to the end of my presentation. These are the sample questions that I told you we would look at. Those are screenshots from the test. So those are real life examples. You can see at the top of your screen all the functionalities that we discussed, with going back and going next and marking the question, etc. This particular question is taken from the verbal reasoning section. It's a little complicated. Bear with me. I'll try to read it out. And in the meantime, you can maybe think what would be the correct answers. So it is refreshing to read a book about our planet by an author who does not allow facts to be overshadowed, invalidated, or illuminated by politics, well aware of the political disputes about the effects of human activities on climate and biodiversity. This author does not permit them to enhance, obscure, or underscore his comprehensive description of what we know about our biosphere. He emphasizes the many aspects of planetary evolution that must be better understood before we can accurately diagnose the condition of our planet. So here you can see it's quite a long passage, but don't be afraid. Not all the questions have such a long text on them. And I'm just giving you a few seconds to again look over all the possible answers. Maybe read it once again. And here are the correct answers marked for you. So I hope a lot of you got it right. If not, don't worry. You can always practice, and I'm sure you'll get there. I'll move on to the next question, which again is from the verbal reasoning section. And as I mentioned, not all the questions have such a long text. So this is an example, excuse me, of this. Cynics believe that people who conjure up, covet, deflect, grasp, shrug off, understand compliments, do so in order to be praised twice. So here you can see it's very important. You need to select two answer choices. Now, something we have found statistically is that a lot of test takers, being aware of the time, you can see the time up here, ticking away, don't necessarily take the time to read the instruction. So please pay attention to this. If this is another important tip I can give you, please do read out the instructions carefully. Because unfortunately there is no points for partially right answers. And now let's move on, and those are the two correct answers. Then I have another question for you from the quant reasoning section. In which of the following integers are multiples of both 2 and 3? So those are all the options, and you must select all correct answers. And you can see over here which are those. I hope this question doesn't seem too scary. It's quite easy, and once you know what the question is asking, I think it's easy to pinpoint the right answers. And here is another type of question, again from the quant reasoning section, where the format is that you actually need to enter. It's called numerical entry as we know it. A merchant made a profit of $5 on a sale of a sweater that cost the merchant $15. What is the profit expressed as a percent of the merchant's cost? Give your answer to the nearest whole percent. So you can see here, that's it, 33%. If you needed to use the calculator for this question, the calculator is always available for you up here. And I believe that's it actually from my side. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I really hope it added value to your understanding to the test. I really hope it helped answer some of your questions regarding the at-home solution or anything else that might have been on your mind. My contact details are here. If I don't manage to give you an answer now, or if maybe a question pops in your mind later, please feel free to email me. I will be very, very happy to help you on your GRE journey. Now, I'm going to take some of the questions that you have submitted during this webinar. So let me have a look. First of all, so there is a question regarding the search service. Irina is asking if she will be contacted by schools different than the schools that she selected as part of her score recipient. Yes, there is the possibility that, opting in for the search service, you will be contacted by other schools. So the idea of the search service really is to just expand your horizon. Maybe, let's say your study destination is France, but maybe you overlooked one or two top business schools or other business schools that may be a right match for your needs, and search for a particular program. So you might be contacted. Please remember, you can always decide whether you want to be part of this service or not. You can always opt out as you opt in as well. So don't feel any obligation. From experience, generally the feedback from applicants has been quite positive, in the sense that sometimes you just you're so focused in your options and in your selected dream schools that you might overlook some other options. So it's always a good idea to keep your options open. Now let's have a look. We have a question regarding the cancellation of scores and whether the scores can be canceled at a later stage. So as I mentioned during the presentation, you can cancel the scores immediately after the test. At the moment, it's not possible to actually cancel your scores at a later stage. However, what you can do, if you're not quite sure whether you want to send the scores to these 4 institutions, or it doesn't have to be 4, maybe you want to send your scores only to 1 or 2 institutions, you can always decide to omit this option. So you can say, I will not cancel my scores, but I will not report them immediately. On the test day, you may be anxious, so many things are going through your head, maybe you get your scores and you're a little bit disappointed, or maybe you did better than you expected. Maybe you need just a little bit of time to decide what to do with your scores. That's absolutely fine. If you have any doubt, just don't report them to your chosen schools, and you can always come back and do that later on. I hope that answers the question. So there is another question regarding the at-home solution, whether it can be taken more than once. Yes, absolutely. The at-home test can be taken more than once. Actually, the policy on retaking is absolutely the same as the policy on the test center version. So if you wait 21 days, you can register and take the test again. That's absolutely no problem at all. I must warn you that at the moment, the at-home solution is available until the 30th of June. This is the official communication at the moment. We are monitoring the situation all over the world, just to check how the pandemic is expanding or shrinking, hopefully, and how the test centers are being able to open. If we see the need to have the at-home solution open beyond this date, we'll definitely make sure that's the case. But for the time being, it's available until the 30th of June, and it is available in all countries where we usually had testing available, besides China, mainland China, and Iran. So in these 2 countries, unfortunately, at the moment, the at-home solution is not available, but otherwise, anywhere else we had the test running at a test center, it is now available at home. I hope that helps. Now, there is a question regarding how do we make sure there are no frauds during the test. That's a great question. And I'm guessing the biggest concern is regarding the at-home exam, because there's so many creative ways that test takers can be creative, and the way we do this is multiple ways, actually. First of all, we make sure that the person taking the test is the same person that registers. So during the registration process, we ask for the ID documents, and when you take the test, you need to show the same document. So the human proctor is going to compare, but also there is a facial recognition software running at the background that is making sure that the ID is valid, corresponds to the person, and is an official document issued by an official agency. Then the human proctor is going to record the session and watch you while you take your exam, just to make sure that there is no sudden movements, or the person is not looking all over the room, etc., etc. There's we call it gaze tracking. So if somebody's eyes are moving all over the room, the proctor is going to ask the student to show the room. Actually, as part of the check-in process during the at-home exam, the proctor is going to ask the test taker to take their laptop or their camera and show them, give them a 360 view of the room, including under the desk, including the walls behind, on the desk, just to make sure there's nothing on the desk. So those are some of the precautious, some of the measures we take to ensure there is no fraudulent activity during the test. This is for the at-home solution. I believe a lot of what I just said applies for the test center version of the test, with the only difference that there, of course, there is a human that is physically available and they are watching for any suspicious activity. So I hope this helps. Let me check if we have time for a few more questions. All right. So there is a question regarding the appropriate time to prepare for the GRE test. I'm afraid there's no right or wrong answer to this question. My best advice would be it's a very personal situation and it's going to be different for every individual. I would say go online, create an account. It's absolutely free of charge. By creating an ETS account, you don't have the obligation to register for the test, but you do have the opportunity to take the 2 free tests that I spoke about earlier on the webinar. And in this way, you can see how you're doing, you know, which skills are strong, which are not, and then you can decide how long it would take you to prepare. It may be weeks, it may be months, also depends on the rest of your schedule, if you can, you know, how many hours you can dedicate, etc. You know, a lot of the test is just getting used to the format. You will see that some of the questions also come about more than once, so you may be surprised and actually get a question that you already practiced on, to, you know, give you a little bit of extra points on the test. So practice really makes perfect. That's the bottom line. How long, I'm not sure, but the Power Prep tools can give you a good indication of what you need to put in terms of resources. And let me see if I can see some more questions. So there is a question regarding the official scores. So the official scores will be available within 10 to 15 days in your online account. You must know that we don't send paper copies of the results, so you will not receive a certificate or anything on paper. They will be available to you online. So those are the completely official verified scores that you feel free to report to schools. If you had already selected the 4 schools for your test to go to, they will see the scores at the same time you do. So there is no delay. There's nothing extra you need to do. Once you see your scores, these 4 schools will be able to see it too. And then, of course, you can always decide to add extra schools to this form. Right, let's have a look. So there is a question regarding a chance to change the date of my test once it has been scheduled. So generally speaking, let's say you had the registration to take the test at a test center, but during the test closures with the COVID-19 concerns, you're no longer able to take the test. You can reschedule the test center appointment to an online appointment free of charge. So we don't charge you the rescheduling fee. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you will be charged a rescheduling fee if you just wanted to move the date of the test. We have a question from Egypt, and until when the GRE at home will be available in Egypt. At the moment, as I mentioned earlier, the official communication is until the 30th of June. So if you're planning on taking the at-home exam, please register already. You have roughly a month and a half to still take your test. After that, we will assess the situation and see if we are able or if it's necessary for us to extend the at-home solution. In any case, always check online, connect with us, check for updates, contact me, ask me questions, whatever is the best for you. But at the moment, this is the official communication, 30th of June. All right, let's see what other questions we have and if we're still on time. Very good questions. Actually, we have whether schools can see whether the exam was taken at home or at the test center. Schools have no visibility over that, not because we don't want them to, but simply because there is really no difference at all, as I mentioned during the presentation, in terms of format, in terms of sections, in terms of scoring, everything is the same. So you shouldn't worry that schools will be biased, or they will say, you know, the at-home is not as valid as the test center version. That's not the case. Actually, a lot of the schools that we work with, a lot of the schools that accept the GRE, the majority of them see the at-home test as a completely equivalent version of the test center version. So you shouldn't have any concerns regarding this. But if you do, and if it will give you a peace of mind, get in touch with the schools of your choice and ask them. I'm quite confident that you will get the same response, but just to, you know, give you some extra peace of mind. And I believe it has come time for me to take the last question. Let me see what I haven't answered just yet. So there is a question regarding sending your best scores to schools. So yes, you can send your school best scores, excuse me, to as many schools as you wish. It doesn't have to be 1 or 2 or 3. You can pick as many schools as you wish to share your best scores with. I hope this answers the question, but if there's any follow-up question regarding this, please feel free to get in touch with me personally, and I'll be happy to answer. And I believe this concludes our webinar today. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining. I hope once again that this was valuable information to you, and it gave you some answers. I hope to be in touch with all of you in the future. Please feel free to contact me.
Okay, thank you, Maria, for the extremely interesting presentation. We've received so many questions, and thank you for taking the time to answer so many of them. Actually, all candidates who've registered for this webinar will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording, and also we'll make sure that all the questions that were not answered will be included in the follow-up article connected with the video recording. On behalf of Prep Advisor team, first, thank you all for joining this webinar, and we wish you luck in your academic journey and hope to meet you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.